Hi, this is Cameron Murray, and this is my Module 7 video and reflection. So the very first thing that I'm going to talk about is the blended learning lessons. I did a couple different models, actually. Station rotation was the one that I focused on last week, and I feel like it worked, but it didn't allow me to vary for student individual needs quite as much as I had hoped. It definitely did solve the problem of not being able to communicate well with the whole group by making a smaller group and then being able to communicate with them each, the three separate groups individually. I also tried out kind of like a flex model. I have flex model-ish because I don't think it was completely a flex model, but I've been working with my level 3 students and now my level 4 students, basically allowing them to work on things at their own pace. I provide the resources, some instruction, and then they kind of have to figure things out, complete activities, and really assess themselves for when they're ready for moving on and taking the quizzes and assessments. And I feel like that has worked a lot for differentiating, being able to work with students one-on-one when they're having problems. They just come see me. And I obviously have the opportunity then to work with smaller groups or individually and communicate with them that way. And I think the blendedlearning.org website also mentioned that FlexModel allows for control of learning, and the students definitely have that, which I really do like that. They're able to control what they learn, when they learn it, how they learn it. Okay, so the next one is change. And I think one thing that I definitely want to change is I want to make sure that I add enrichment if I do stations. So more enrichment. I had some enrichment, but I think more than one activity is necessary because some students were finishing at each station a little bit early. So that's definitely something I want to add. The second thing is the introduction. So the way that I introduced it, I think needs to be changed a little bit, maybe through a screencast, which upon reflecting makes more sense. So providing them with a screencast so that they can watch it and then kind of give them all the instructions there. I think that would really improve the individuality and independence for my students. So just watch the video, they'll get the instructions, etc. For number 3, I don't know if I wasn't really prepared or expecting this, but I did have some technology failure. So the firewall at my school blocked the website after a couple days that the students were using for the Euro activity. And this was obviously a problem. So the way that we kind of solved or temporarily solved the problem was I had my students basically just Google the questions. So figure out on their own what the answers to those questions were. So that's the one thing that I came up with that. Number 4 was my challenges. My biggest challenge, I think, was the student questions when they weren't in the direct instruction group. So they would put their hand up like they normally would in class, and it was a challenge for me to not go to them. And I think getting better at that and kind of coming up with the system and making sure that my students are aware of the system is very important for that. For the questions that I have, one of my biggest questions is regarding grading, and that is specifically grading in the flex model. Because students are working at their own pace, I think it's challenging to put it in the gradebook and then you have all these blank grades for students who haven't yet reached that assessment. How much homework do I grade? Because if each student is working on a different amount of homework for certain sections or different types of assignments, etc., it's difficult. I also have a challenge with if a student is working on an assignment and they get so far ahead, where do I end the marking period? So that's just something that I've been thinking about because I do like the flex model and I'm hoping to work toward that a little bit more. The next thing is what's best for the students. So that's a question. Like, how do I know when what I'm doing is the best thing for the students? What if there's something I could be doing better? And I'll move my video here. This quote I liked from our book, which I think kind of speaks to this a little bit. But if kids want to learn, we couldn't stop them. If they don't, we can't make them. That was by Jack Freimeyer in the textbook that we're using for our course. And I think, I mean, we can't really make them learn, but I think if we can make them want to learn, that's what's best for our students. And when they want to learn in our classroom, through the activities we present to them and the way that we present it, making them feel independent, making them feel like they're part of the class, getting them involved with all of that. I think that's, I hope, maybe I'm answering my question here, what's best for our students. For the next section, which was my ahas, I had quite a few of these. So specifically when I was talking to some of my students that are using the Flex model, my kind of Flex model version, their reactions were surprisingly positive. I don't know why I was expecting them to be more negative, but they're not really pushing back there too much. And I don't think it's because they're being lazy or knowing that they can get away with things or anything like that. I think they're genuinely appreciating the fact that they can work independently and can get help when they need it, but also have the ability to move on when they can or when they want to, in terms of their readiness, so their mastery of the content. And I think maybe also getting to communicate with me directly and get feedback directly might also be helpful there. Another aha I had was the teacher effectiveness. So I feel like I was able to work better specifically in the Flex model because I just feel like I'm doing a better job of being there for the students in whatever way they need me. So if I have a student who needs help with a grammar concept, I can have that student come back and start helping them, giving them more guidance as to which direction they should go, and still providing them just enough assistance that they can start to learn it on their own, as opposed to me kind of answering their questions for them, letting them answer them themselves. So the next one that I have is just how natural it seemed. So even with the station rotation, but especially the Flex model, I feel like it feels more natural, like a more natural type of learning. We're not formatting the pace. We're not providing the pace. We're not providing a ton of the resources, because students are still able to look things up on their own or use the resources that I provide, but they're really learning on their own, and it feels more natural, which is something that I was really surprised to see happening, the natural learning, as opposed to me kind of dictating what they learn and how they learn it. So that was pretty cool, and hopefully that continues. And then the last thing was that the connections my students were making between the stations. So obviously the way that I set it up was so that they would get parts, and then some things would overlap in each station. But it was pretty cool when my students would get to my station, they would mention things that they heard about or saw in the other stations. So touching the coins in one station and then coming to the teacher-directed station, allow them to make connections between what they just felt on the coins or saw on the coins, and then how that might connect to being blind and understanding how using that currency could be helpful. Overall, I think the blended learning models have really been helpful, and I'm really interested in going forward with the Flex model. I look forward to hear what others have to say, and if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you.